On a cold and rain-soaked morning, courtroom 42 was unusually quiet, the kind of silence that settles not because there is nothing to say, but because everyone inside knows that what is about to be said may change lives forever, as Judge Frank Caprio entered the room with his usual calm presence, nodding gently to the clerk, the lawyers, and finally to the defendant standing alone at the center of the courtroom, a thin, exhausted-looking man named Daniel Morris, age 46, a janitor by profession, father of 2, widower of 3 years, and now the center of a civil lawsuit demanding $2.7 million in damages for a construction accident that allegedly caused a major electrical fire in a luxury commercial building downtown, a building owned by a powerful real estate corporation with a team of lawyers sitting confidently on one side of the room, while Daniel stood without legal representation, clutching a folded piece of paper in his trembling hands, his work boots still stained with cleaning chemicals, his jacket clearly borrowed and a size too big, his eyes red not from fear alone but from months of sleepless nights, as the judge asked gently, "Mr. Morris, do you understand why you are here today?" And Daniel nodded slowly, swallowing hard before answering in a quiet voice that barely reached the microphone. "Yes, Your Honor, they say I caused the fire, and they say I owe more money than I will earn in 10 lifetimes. Causing a murmur to pass through the courtroom. Because everyone knew that $2.7 million was not just a number, it was a life sentence of debt for a man who earned barely $28,000 a year, and as the plaintiff's attorney rose to speak, presenting charts, reports, and expert statements describing how Daniel had allegedly failed to follow safety protocol while cleaning an electrical control room after hours, leading to a short circuit that caused millions in damages. The case seemed straightforward on paper, clean, and convincing, yet Judge Caprio listened carefully, leaning forward slightly, his eyes never leaving Daniel's face, as if he understood that truth often hides not in documents but in people, and when it was Daniel's turn to speak, there was no polished argument, no legal jargon, only a man telling his story, explaining that on the night of the incident he had been called in unexpectedly because another worker did not show up, that he had followed the instructions given to him by his supervisor, that the warning signs were not visible because the lights in the control room were broken, something he had reported weeks earlier, and that he had no training in electrical systems, only basic cleaning, and as he spoke, his voice cracked when he mentioned that he had stayed late because overtime pay was the only way he could afford his daughter Emily's asthma medication, and that if he had known even for a second that his actions could cause harm, he would have walked away, even if it meant losing his job, and that moment shifted the air in the courtroom, because suddenly the case was no longer about wires and switches, but about survival, responsibility, and the invisible weight carried by people who clean buildings after everyone else has gone home, and Judge Caprio asked a simple but powerful question. "Mr. Morris, did anyone from the company ever train you on how to safely clean around electrical equipment?" And Daniel shook his head. "No, Your Honor, they just told me to mop and wipe everything down." And when the judge asked the company's representative the same question, there was hesitation, a pause long enough to reveal uncertainty, and that pause became the first crack in the plaintiff's case, because what followed was a deeper examination that uncovered ignored maintenance reports, cost-cutting decisions, and internal emails showing that management was aware of faulty wiring and broken warning lights months before the fire, yet continued to assign untrained staff to the area to avoid hiring specialized contractors, and as this evidence surfaced, the courtroom shifted again, the confidence on the lawyers' faces tightening into forced smiles, while Daniel stood still, his hands now at his sides, not hopeful yet, but no longer completely defeated. And then came the most emotional moment of the day, when Judge Caprio allowed Daniel to speak one final time before ruling, and Daniel, his voice shaking, said, "Your Honor, I lost my wife to cancer 3 years ago. I clean floors at night and offices in the morning. I don't drink, I don't gamble, I just work and try to raise my kids right. And when they told me I owed $2.7 million, my first thought wasn't about me. It was about my children growing up thinking their father ruined everything. And I just want the court to know that I would never knowingly hurt anyone or anything. I just wanted to do my job and go home." And there was not a single dry eye in the courtroom as Judge Caprio removed his glasses, rubbed his forehead thoughtfully, and delivered a ruling that would be remembered by everyone present, stating that while damages had indeed occurred, responsibility must be assigned where negligence truly existed, not where convenience pointed, and that holding a minimum wage worker personally liable for systemic corporate failures was not justice but avoidance of accountability, and therefore the court dismissed the claim against Daniel Morris in full, assigning responsibility to the property management Company for failure to maintain safe working conditions and for knowingly exposing untrained employees to hazardous environments. And as the words "case dismissed" echoed through the room, Daniel did not cheer or shout. He simply covered his face with both hands and cried silently. The kind of cry that comes from months of bottled fear finally being released, while Judge Caprio added one final statement, looking directly at the company's lawyers. The law is not a shield for the powerful to hide behind. It is a mirror that shows us who we are when no one is watching. And in that moment, the $2.7 million case transformed into something far greater than money, becoming a reminder that justice is not measured in dollars but in dignity. And as Daniel left the courtroom later that day, stepping into the rain with nothing but his old jacket and a cleared name, he called his daughter to tell her he would be home early. And for the first time in months, his voice carried something new. Not relief alone, but hope, the kind that reminds us that even in a system filled with numbers, files, and power, a single human story, when truly heard, can still change everything.